He was like, yo, let me introduce you to Ed Sheeran. And then Ed was like, I want a rapper to come up on stage and spit with me. And everybody started pushing me up to the stage. I found his pocket and I spit this verse and I freestyled a little bit with him and then went right back into his song. You need me, man, I don't need you. You need me, man, I don't need you. And everybody went crazy. Like, it was dope.
Hey, it's Scott Brandon Hoffman, aka Brandon AF, and this is the Mostly Conscious Late Night Show. And I have one of the coolest, most inspiring creators and human beings in the green room, and I'm so excited to have him on the show. And not to mention, he's a Grammy nominated spoken word poet. We'll be back in a sec. Live from the internets, it's the Conscious Late Night Show with your host, Brandon AF, with tonight's special guest, Sekou Andrews. Brandon AF. Yeah, that's me, yo. I'm so excited about this guy. He's laughing in the room. See, I say this every episode. They're always giggling in the green room before this show starts, and that makes me feel good because it makes my heart happy. This guy is someone that I've followed for a long time, and I finally got to know him, and he's friends with a couple of dear friends of mine. He's just one of those people that has that it factor. He's lit. He's got energy. He's amazingly talented, and he's super driven and hungry, and he takes a major stand for people, major stand for speakers and poets and creators. And I just love him to pieces, and I can't wait to drop in deeper. I could talk for 4 hours, but I want to talk to him, not myself. I do that enough at home. So I'm going to show you a quick little intro reel so you can get a taste of him, and then we'll bring him to the room.
It is this power of music to move our individual units and re-release me, remixed by you, remastered as us. And we will know that our symphony is hotter than my single when God hears us turn on and shouts, oh, that's my song!
And there he is. That's my song.
That's
dude,
my
like,
song.
Can I tell you that I just get chills when I hear that song, and when I watch you do that, I'm just like, was that done during COVID, if I recall, or no? Or was it before?
No, that was done right before COVID, 2019.
Right before COVID.
In Berlin, right up against the Berlin Wall.
That's dope. What was the inspiration of that? Have you ever done the actual music side of it before, or was that kind of a new thing you threw in?
I have done all my albums. I've had music. I've been a music producer for many, many years. I started off in hip hop, producing my own music, producing music for other cats. And so all of my previous albums were produced by me. This was the first album that I turned over the music to.
It's awesome.
An amazing symphony orchestra out of Berlin and out of Europe, and they killed it. The String Theory. Shout out to the String Theory.
Yeah, that was like, when I saw that video, and I was just like, man, this guy's living my dream. He's been living it for a long time too. I want to really unpack and start with, you had a 7-page poem that your dad wrote for you. Was it when you were born that he wrote that? And then tell me what happened. Like, where did that, obviously you couldn't read it as an infant, but when did that start to seep into your soul?
So it's really interesting to me because I didn't discover that the poem had been written until like 7 years ago, maybe. It's crazy. You would think that my mom would have had it framed, especially, or at least told me once I was becoming a full-time poet. You would have thought she'd been like, but I just was cleaning out some stuff and just happened to discover it. It was a 7-page poem that he wrote as I was being born. So it's got time marks, and it's 12:10 p.m. My little man is doing this, and 11:30 a.m. his mother is screaming, and it's classic because it's in my dad's typical 70 blaxploitation jive turkey talk. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So it's dope. It's very authentic, but it's got some truly beautiful moments that just, when I realized that it had been written and that I had, in a sense, been birthed through poetry, you can imagine how meaningful that was for me.
Yeah. And where did this creative spark come from? Was it there when you were 5, 6, 7? Did it come later in your life? Where did it start? Because I know there's a whole character ascension, evolution, arc here that I want to unpack as well. But I loved those early years. I always like to tap into is did people, were they doing it? Did they get it shut down and they had to like ditch it for a while? I have a feeling you did not ditch it for a while, but yeah, I'm just curious. I love those stories. Like, where did it start? Like,
It, I gotta give shout out to my parents for that because they truly nurtured it. I come from two incredibly creative parents. Both of them are artists. My dad was a painter, sculptor. My mom was a dancer, choreographer. So the arts were nurtured in me heavily.
Mm.
I actually started off doing visual arts, when I was in elementary school, painting and drawing like my dad. And then I discovered the stage in middle school. I did a middle school play, The Wiz. I was the lion in The Wiz, and
of course you were.
I was hooked. And it's crazy because I was the lion in The Wiz, but I wanted to be the scarecrow. And I was new to this. I was new to this school. I was, I just moved from Berkeley, California to DC, Maryland area, and had never acted before, so I had no idea the hierarchy of getting roles and how hard it is to get the lead role. Yeah. I was like, Michael Jackson was the scarecrow in The Wiz, and damn it, I'm finna be Michael Jackson. Period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I went after the scarecrow, and I got the lion. And I only had one friend at the time because I was new to the school, and he was like, "You're pissed because you got the lion?" He was like, "I'm a munchkin that brings the queen on at the end, and you're the lion." And
right? Yeah. Now that I tap into it, I'm like, you could have been the Wizard of Oz, man. Before they pulled back the curtain. Before they pulled back the curtain.
Right. Before they pulled back the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was that I was hooked though after that, and so I was hooked on the stage. I discovered hip hop at the same time. I started forming bands. I started recording music. I started performing talent shows. And that's really when the creativity sort of ignited in me. And that I think had always been there. But both of my parents, in addition to being artists, they were also both educators and they were both entrepreneurs. So there was very much this sense of, yes, art and creativity, but you're going to keep your butt in school. This ain't going to be one of those.
And get yourself a check. And get yourself a check.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And though, like that was the educator, you're going to go to college, but the entrepreneur in them was like, you're going to get yourself a check, but the check doesn't have to come from a traditional job, right? So I think all three of those were nurtured in me, and I'm grateful for that because if you think about it, my work now is literally the intersection of art, education, and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, God. It's like I'm sitting here on the outside going, it's so funny when I have people on the show that are like, they were just born into it. Like they just hit it. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of your challenges and some of your dark nights, if you had any, but I'm sure you had some because you're human. I was an artist very early on and I was not nurtured on it. Like, once I got to an age where it's like, no, you got to go get a real job and do real stuff in the world. And it took me decades to come back to where I'm at, trying to nurture the stuff back again. When I see people like you, I'm like, and it's also, I feel like your soul, it was probably like drinking a delicious drink of water in a desert. Not even in a desert, what am I saying? In like a 5-star resort. Because it's like, you just knew, you just took to it right away. That was your home. Like you just knew, right? When you were on stage, you were like, bam, like this is it.
It got good to me. And I realized like, this is home. This is a place that I want to be. It's interesting because it wasn't until the beginning of the pandemic, 2020, that suddenly I realized how much audience applause was nutrition, like was nourishment for me,
Well, here, we'll give you some. We'll give you some.
Thank you. Oh, stop it. I love you too. But it was like suddenly, for the longest period ever, I had gone without being on stage, gone without audience applause. And I was like, whoa, like it was affecting me just emotionally and spiritually. It was like that immediate gratification for, as artists, we pour our heart, our soul, our spirit, our marrow into our work a lot of times. And one of the few things that refill us is the immediate appreciation of an audience, seeing the lyrics, saying the words, giving applause, coming up to you afterwards and sharing what it meant. So suddenly in the absence of that, it was all push, right? It was all virtual this and push that and sending it out and so forth. And I was like, whoa, there's an emptiness that I haven't felt in decades.
Yeah, performers definitely went through that. Yeah, that's a lot of...
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think anyone that was on stage, whether they were speakers, poets, singer-songwriters, comedians, it got tough because it's like you're sitting there now you're on Zoom and
Oh yeah.
you don't get that. You can't feel the energy of the audience. But I know the cool thing about you is you know how to tap into that and like, you know, perform on any stage. So I know you bring it.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's like a different vibe.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any insecurities at all? Did you ever feel fear, or did you feel like you were just meant to be on that sucker?
That keeps me a little fear with me, Brandon. Okay, it keeps me a little fear.
Do
You
you?
know, yeah,
All
absolutely.
right,
It's
all
like when
right.
I do speaker training, and I have a speaker training course called Stage Might, and it's basically
Yes.
teaching people's performance secrets for public speaking, right? Rockstar secrets for public speakers. And one of the techniques I talk about is how to harness nervousness, because everybody's like, "Oh my God, I get so nervous. You don't seem like you're nervous at all. How do you do that?" And I'm like, "No, it's good to keep a little nervousness with you, because what happens is, you know, we've all seen that can presenter that looks like they're just going through it with their eyes closed, right? They're disconnected. You can tell they're just going through the motions, zero nervousness. And I
Yeah.
feel like nervousness, if you keep a little bit, a healthy amount, it keeps you present. It keeps you feeling like you might fail. And there's something, if you think about the way that adrenaline, right? And those
Mm.
synapses firing and just our physiology, if you suddenly have that, a little bit of fear, your awareness is heightened, your senses are heightened, you're present, and the audience can feel you being present. And so if you feel like you might fail, the audience feels like, hey, he could fail or not, right? This is not Superman. This is a human being. They're flawed. Something could happen. Let me engage. Let me check in. Let me pay attention. And it leaves them leaning forward. And so the same thing is true just in life. I feel like, you know, if you don't have anything that scares you and you're not pushing yourself into the right places. I'm always constantly pushing myself into scary places, but I try to keep them on the edge of that sort of scary and, you know, terrifying and exhilarating, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like, you know, there's that phrase, do one thing every day that scares you. I feel like you've got to keep a little bit of that with you, because it's
100.
what's helping you grow. You got to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
intentional about giving yourself stretch marks, as I say.
What's with that spiritual stretch marks?
Yeah.
What's on your edge right now? Is there something on your edge that you're like moving into?
Oh, oh man, I'm in the biggest, most terrifying and exhilarating place, probably of my career right now, because as of today, literally, the day that we're recording this, I'm not sure, you know, when exactly it's airing, but as
Yeah.
of today, this is my 20th anniversary of being a full-time spoken word poet.
I know.
20
I
years.
was ready to bring that up. You stole it out of the bag. Like,
Dude,
let's do it.
well,
Let's do it.
because you asked me 20 years ago. 20 years
Yeah.
ago, I quit my job,
Mhm.
um, to you know, I was an elementary school teacher, and
Yeah.
I went up to my school. I told my principal. I didn't even get a chance to tell her I'm leaving. I pulled up, had big speech ready, and I walked into the office, and she sat down with me and she said, "You're leaving me, aren't you?" And I was
Damn.
like, I had my speech already, and you just like blocked it. And she was like, "Yeah, I always knew you were, you know, destined for a different stage, a bigger stage."
Mm.
And after that, you know, a few months later, on June 28th, I did my last day. And 3 days later, I did my first CD release show at a club out here in LA, and I made my rent in CD sales that night. And I remember thinking to myself, because as the crowd cleared from the streets of Santa Monica Boulevard, and I was standing in the darkness by myself and looked up at the
Mm.
sky, and I was like, "Damn, I can do this." And it's like that literally began this journey that has been nonstop for the past 20 years. So as I was thinking about what do I want to do to celebrate that, initially I was going to do a big concert, and just kind of try to put on a next level spoken word concert. But then I try to keep myself, not only do I keep myself in scary places, but I keep myself surrounded by people that see greatness in me that I don't always see for myself, and push me into it. And so I brought on an event producer and a brand manager and a dear friend of mine. And she said, I will see your 1 day concert, and I will raise you a 3 day inspirational expo. And
Woo!
so literally in September 9th, 10th, and 11th of 2022 in downtown LA, I'm doing an event that is an inspirational expo. It'll be performances and pop-ups and panels and workshops. It'll be game changers. It'll be pioneers
Man.
and trailblazers. It'll be artists, and it'll all be centered around these 20 unique experiences to celebrate 20 years. And it's just celebrating the mindset. I'll tell you real quick a story.
Yeah.
The story behind it is that I years ago, back when I was I before I even started teaching, I was an aspiring entertainment attorney. I was working in law firms, graduated from college, planning to go to law school, working in law firms in downtown LA. And I went to this music conference, one of these how to make it in the music biz kind of conferences. And I remember sitting around this room. We were at a panel, one of the panels with record executives. And I remember sitting around this room with hundreds of recording artists, aspiring recording artists, all holding on to our demo, looking up at this panel, hoping to be discovered, right? And one of the record executives said something I never forgot, Brandon. He said, the number of people who go from completely nowhere in the music industry to completely successful in the music industry is less than the number of people who get struck by lightning twice.
Damn.
And I was like, twice? What are you talking? Twice? Right? And then suddenly I felt like I was looking back around the room, and now I was surrounded by all of these aspiring artists, all staring up at the sky, hoping to be struck by lightning. And that was really the minute that everything changed for me. That was kind of the beginning of the change of the trajectory of my career, where I decided to stop chasing lightning and start making lightning. I decided to build of my life a lightning machine. And so we've named this event in September the Lightning Machine. And it celebrates the mindset of lightning makers everywhere, game changers, vanguards, and people who are unafraid to bring inspiration to business, to culture, to politics, to communities, to that spark that lightning makers create in this world.
I want to come.
It's going to be powerful.
I got to be there. I want to come. I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to move in a couple of weeks after that too, and I'm like, whatever, man. It's like that sounds amazing.
Well,
those are my people.
Let us move you before you move yourself.
Yeah, there you go. I like that line. I don't know if I remember it correctly. It's like you said. So instead of chasing lightning, you decided to be the lightning or make lightning.
To make lightning. Yeah.
Like that is the shit. See, that's the thing about Hollywood, man. Because I was in Hollywood for God, how many years? Probably a good 15 or something like that. And
right.
I got my way into all the meetings with the producers and the executives and the big shows and all the different things. And like, and they were all like, well, you know what, man, you're like, for you should probably just, you're older and you're too smart. You should just, otherwise you're not going to want to go like lick people's shoes and bring them cocktails. It's like, why don't you should go do your own thing or just, whatever. And I'm just like, you know what? Fuck you. Excuse my French.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to create my own shit. And then you're going to come knocking on my door and I'm going to say, So
listen, though, one of the phrases from one of my pieces that I've been talking about with the lightning, connected to the lightning machine, is when you get tired of trying to break into the industries of the world, create your own industry and make the world try to break into you. Oh. And that's exactly what you did.
Damn. I feel like I got to write everything down. I can't go off camera. Instead of trying to break, what do you say? Instead of trying to instead
of trying to break into the industries of the world, create your own industry and make the world try to break into you. Because that's what happens, right? You have the people say, oh, that thing doesn't exist. And people settle for that. Mm-hmm. And then it comes there, and there's a lightning maker, right? Somebody that sees the sky simply as a canvas and says, I will bring light to this dark place. I will create a path where there is none. And then everybody else goes, oh, wow, yeah, there's a path there now. Duh.
Yeah, sure,
it's
trailblazer.
Like you're the one, right. But when you're the one blazing the trail, like it's not duh. It's like everybody's telling you it's impossible. It's not going to exist. And, I live in that space of impossibility.
Right,
so
because
that's why it keeps me a little fear with me, like I said.
I'm possible, right? Didn't you do that in one of your pieces? Right. Yeah, it's like
I did, and then Adidas ripped it off.
Yeah, of course. Impossible.
Like I saw
nothing.
that in an Adidas commercial, and I'm like,
right.
Y'all stole my reel. You heard me say that.
You stole my lightning, bitches. What's up with that? Yeah, that's crazy. So give me just a little bit of that space, that trajectory from where you walked away from your teaching job, and because you've been in lots of different parts of the careers. You've done hip hop, you've been on MTV, and then you created, you kind of move forward and I'm just like rambling on this, but you created this beautiful poetic voice, and there's this massive mission behind it, which is totally badass. And I want to hear just a little bit about the stuff you did. And you were on stage now. That whole, I got to talk about that Ed Sheeran story, because you got all the people, like you either performed with or performed for people. I'm just going to see if I remember my great memory here. Stevie Wonder, Jay-Z, Oprah. Maroon 5, Maya Angelou, Ed Sheeran, and a bunch of other people. But that Ed Sheeran one, did you kind of sneak up on stage at his concert or something like that? Do I remember seeing that, or were you actually playing with him? I forget.
No. It was actually very early at the beginning of his career,
Okay.
and he was doing a club, and it was he was there's a really dope spoken word and music showcase here in Los Angeles called Fly Poet. If you've never been there,
Yeah.
it's the best date night you'll ever have. It's a dope night out with homies. It's a place where you can see some of the best of spoken word in a highly curated show. And so it's been going on for I think they're at their 20th year now as well. And they're going to be coming on and helping with the Lightning Machine as well. And so I was performing at one of the Fly Poet monthly showcases. And no, actually, let me think. I don't even think I was performing, actually. But I was just in the audience, just watching my fellow poets and just, supporting. And the host brought in this guy. He was like, "Yo, this dude's blowing up the scene. Let me introduce you to Ed Sheeran." He kind of just came through. He's in LA hitting up different spots. And Ed just kind of came up and did a cameo. And then Ed was like, I want a rapper to come up on stage, or somebody to come up on stage and spit with me. And everybody started pushing me up to the stage, right? And so this woman and I got on stage, and she did her thing. And then afterwards, I got up and I just kind of like found his pocket, and I spit this verse, and I kind of freestyled a little bit with him, and then went right back into his song. "You need me, man, I don't need you. You need me, man, I don't need." And everybody went crazy, like,
woo! Oh,
yeah.
that's so amazing. Like, did you ever? Well, let's get back to that. So where was the actual? Yeah. Did you start with rap first before you went into poetry? Like, where was the?
Yeah. So
where was the call?
Rap and theater were the first loves.
Uh-huh.
Acting and music were the first loves. I discovered acting in middle school on stage with The Wiz, and then I discovered hip hop that same year. Ironically, everybody's like, "Yo, what's the MC or the rapper that inspired you to become a rapper?" And everybody's always got these great names. And for me, I always crack out when I say it, but it was New Edition.
Get out of here.
It was New Edition because they did that rap, and it was so simple to me.
Oh man!
And I remember thinking, it was like Candy Girl. I think it was like, "Why you all coming down on me? You're gonna show me how life is supposed to be," right? And I was like, if that's rap, I could do that, right? Like it was just this mind. I was like, that's kind of dope, but that's all it is. I was like, I got that in the bag. And so I just started flowing, and I did. Like, it came out of me naturally. And so I pursued music, and I pursued Hollywood. I was chasing record deals and chasing Hollywood through high school, through college, and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And then after college, I started going to neighborhood open mics to build a fan base for my music. Because what was happening is I was in a sense, I was too much of a lyricist for mainstream hip hop.
Yeah.
And a lot of like true lyricists understand exactly what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
totally,
Rejection from record labels because we not bitches and hoes and shoot them up and bling bling.
Right.
We're not doing that commercial thing enough for the labels to just be like, sign them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we tend to be a little bit more the anomalies, and I was frustrated with that. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go the MC Hammer route, right? Make my own record label, sell my own records. And I started going to open mics to build a fan base for my music. And my lyrics were hitting, but what was hitting on the scene was I used to perform my lyrics more spoken word style, right? So you had a lot of MCs that would get up there and they would spit their rhyme to the cadence of the music, even though they didn't have music, and you would lose a lot of the words. And I'd be like, damn, that was dope, and it sounded verbally fresh, but I didn't catch all the content. And I was like, y'all put a lot of work into these words. I want you to hear my words. So I would deliver it a little bit more spoken word style, more conversational. Mm-hmm. And that really hit on the scene. And then I was like, damn, like, I kind of like this spoken word thing. Maybe let me try that out. And then I started writing more traditional spoken word poems. And then that hit on the scene, and my name kept getting bigger and bigger on the LA scene. And then I was like, I think I accidentally fell in love with spoken word poetry. And that was not the intention, right?
Yeah.
Because I was pursuing this multi-billion-dollar industry of hip hop music, and now suddenly I've accidentally fallen in love with this multi-$100 art form of spoken word poetry.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with this. How do you even make a living? Is there a future in it? And I was getting frustrated while I was falling in love. And then the entrepreneur, I've always been kind of part artist, part entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur
Yeah.
in me was like, well, what if we go make an industry for it?
Yeah.
Right?
Poetic
Like, what if we,
voice. Is that
right?
what
Like,
poetic
what
voice
if
would
we,
call
like,
it?
you're saying there's no industry, you're saying there's no models to follow, Seiku, for what long term success in
Yeah.
spoken word looks like. Well, go be that. And so I decided to quit my job as the teacher 20 years ago, and I stepped out to do poetry full time. And the first decade was really the decade of survival. That was just me trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I make money? How do I pay rent off of this? How do I not have to go back and get a job? But what I began to realize in that decade of survival is the problem is there's no perceived value for spoken word poetry,
Mm.
right? People perceive it as this thing that you see for free or for $2 at an open mic on a Tuesday night,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so there's always this sense of, the broke poet, the perpetual proverbial broke poet. You should be happy to be here. You should be happy with this little $50 check or this $500 check. You should be happy to do it for exposure or visibility. And I realized this is a problem because there's no value for what we do, but yet we're bringing so much value. I've done network television shows where everybody got paid. Dancers, bouncers, DJs, everybody got paid, but the poets did it for free for a
Hmm.
network show. And
Hmm.
I was like, there's a disconnect here. And the problem is we don't have an infrastructure. We don't have an industry. We don't have agents and unions and folks fighting for us. And
Yeah.
so I realized I'm never going to be able to maintain this successful career unless I create value. So my second decade then really became the decade of value. It became, I'm not chasing follows, I'm chasing zeros, right? People always look at my brand and they're like, yo, your company's big, your name is big, your brand is big, but your social media following isn't that big. And these days, the social media following is the symbol of how successful you are, right? But
Yeah,
for
and it
me, I
doesn't
was
mean
like,
anything about income or cash either, though, at
well, that's
all.
the thing is that now it can. Now you got
Yeah.
$1 million YouTube stars, but back when I
Yeah.
started, you didn't, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I was going, look, I don't have an industry behind me, which means I can get 1 million views, and that'll turn into 100 gig offers at like $20 each or something. You know what I mean? I was like, I can't make a living off of that. So
Yeah.
I was like, I need to figure out how to get people to think poets deserve to be paid. Period. And so that began the decade of value for me. And that was when I actually then created Poetic Voice, because I was looking at what industries I wanted to kick open the door for spoken word. And I looked at the public speaking industry and was like, it's ripe for spoken word. And so I went through and kind of decided to disrupt the public speaking industry by creating an actual new speaking category that fuses inspirational speaking with spoken word poetry seamlessly, so that
Yes.
you don't really know where one ends and the next begins. And that became Poetic Voice, what is now known as Poetic Voice, and is now a highly sought after style of speaking from the biggest companies around the world. So it was just this matter of creating value, teaching the industry that poets deserve to be at the table, not just at your company's holiday party, but at your senior leadership meeting where you have your best
Yeah.
keynote speakers,
Yeah.
not just not just on someone else's Grammy award-winning album, but on our own Grammy award-winning albums for the music industry,
Hmm.
for the theater industry, all bringing spoken word for all these different industries, and saying there's value in here, respect the value, pay for the value, because we can change lives with just like any other art form.
100%. How did you position that? Like, where did that first thing of going from, hey, you know what, I can go viral on YouTube and get like, $10, $20 offers, or I could go do this and be like a keynote poet, if you will, or a better word for that, I'm sure you have, and really start getting that first 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, just to see that, to prove that this is valuable. And like, this is better than any PowerPoint presentation you're going to get out there, because you're bypassing the brain and the people sitting in the audience with their arms crossed, looking at boring ass, people, the talking head thing, and actually going right into their soul with your soul. Like, how did you position that? Because obviously now, once you've got that boulder rolling down the mountain, it's gone into incredible things and opening doors for a bunch of other people too. But I'm curious how, like, what was it like for that first kind of breaking down that wall and convincing people, or not convincing, persuading, influencing, showing people? There's a story coming. I feel it.
I think when you're hardwired as a hustler, you're driven. You're driven by the words no. You're driven by
Yeah.
the word can't.
Mm.
The slamming doors slamming in your face becomes your soundtrack that serenades your ambitions and your hustle. Um, and so I was constantly being told, no, it doesn't work that way. I was constantly being told, no, like it doesn't, you know, like I said, that spoken word, it only belongs at the company, you know, Christmas party or holiday
Yeah.
party. You know, spoken word only belongs here. But nobody wants to hear spoken word for more than blank blank minutes. And people
Yeah.
don't want spoken word is not for this particular stage or this particular. Like as I was hearing it, and I was just like, you're wrong. You know what I mean? And I think that's
Yeah.
what happens when somebody's like, you know, takes on that trailblazing mindset. You get frustrated because it's like the world is telling you that it's flat, and you're like, you're wrong. I'm looking at it. I can see the roundness. I can see the possibilities right here. That for a whole different kind of world, but you're so stuck on
Totally.
how it has been. And
Totally.
so I think that was really what was the impetus for me. You know, as I started doing work in the business world. I was doing Nike was my first client. Shout out to Nike. They took you know, huge chances on me and
Wow.
constantly gave me work, and I'm very grateful to them. But even then, at the beginning, it was like, yeah, you know, do this fashion show poem, or do this this piece, write this piece about LeBron or Kobe, or write this tennis piece or whatever, right? And it wasn't until I did the analyst meeting. It wasn't until I did an investor meeting, one of the most, you know, value-driven meetings and important meetings for them, where the audience never applauds, and they came up to me afterwards like, "Yo, this has never happened. This audience is giddy, and thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you." And suddenly the light bulb went off for them, and then subsequently, you know, again confirmed the light bulb for me, saying, "Oh, right, this art form does have the ability to hold dense amounts of business content and deliver it in this completely human and inspiring way. We
Yeah.
should use that more." So now finance is picking up the phone and calling me, and now brand is calling me, and PR is calling me, right? And I began to work in these different departments, and so that broke one of the first barriers I had, which is it's only entertainment. It doesn't have any business value. Then the second one of the next barriers was no one wants to listen to it for longer than, right? So it was
Mm.
always like, what's the sweet spot? You know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 6 minutes, right? And I was like, no, give me more time. Yes, I'm used to doing slam poems. And yes, I understand the songs are 3.5 minutes. And yes, I understand that. But movies aren't 3.5 minutes. So don't tell me that my art form only has the value of a song. This art form can move into multiple stages and spaces because it's malleable like that. And so I was like, I believe that a 60-minute, 90-minute poetic keynote is possible. And so then I began to work on crafting that and then teaching that language to the speaking industry. And teaching it to speaker bureaus and agents and producers and meeting planners, and saying, yeah. Well, the sweet spot is blank. And no, oh, how about 15 minutes? Well, surely no more than 18 minutes. There's certainly no more than 20 minutes. And as I began to get longer and longer, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes and beyond,
Yeah.
and there was always this sense of, yeah, but we want to leave the audience wanting more. And I was like, well, what does a good movie do? When a good movie is over, don't you find yourself going, I hate it for it to end at 2 hours, at 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
If you go to a Beyonce concert or whoever your favorite artist is, and they did 3.5 minutes, you'd be pissed. They do a 2-hour concert and you're screaming encore, encore, because they leave you wanting more. So stop telling me that there's this rigid, you know, all powerful time constraint that every art form has to live in. And so again, I kept having to break that and leave them and doing 60-minute keynotes that left people saying, "Damn, we didn't want it to end."
Yeah.
So that was really that was
Hmm.
what also led me to create poetic voice as a speaking category, because I kept struggling with, what do I call this? And am I just doing spoken word? And I was like, but it's different. It's spoken word based, but it's different. And everyone kept telling me from a business perspective, you'd make a lot more money if you just abandon the word poetry or spoken word, right?
Right.
Nobody
Right.
wants to hear that, right?
Yeah.
Get rid of that. That's hurting your marketing. But another thing that was happening, Brandon, during this time, and this
Yeah.
is really important to sort of the theme of your show, is that I was finding purpose.
Mm.
I was beginning to realize that one of the purposes I was put on the planet for was, with my career, was to help to pioneer a mainstream, commercially viable industry for the art of spoken word, so
Mm.
that young poets, when they're growing up, can make a purposeful and a profitable living off of their art. so that poets don't always have to leave their art form to go to another art form and write for a TV show or write books or teach, but they can, just like a comedian, just like a dancer or a singer, they can say, I am a professional spoken word poet and I can have a long-term successful career. And you just weren't seeing that. I had very few models to follow.
Right.
And so as I was realizing that was a big part of my purpose, I was like, I can't abandon the word poetry. That's what's anchoring me. So yes, it is the road less traveled. Yes, it is going to be the more difficult path, but it's the more purpose-driven path for me because it is telling the world, this is poetry. So fuck whatever you thought your version of poetry was before, whatever you thought you hated about poetry, somebody yelling at you for 3 minutes, some beat poet with the beret, some, revolutionary poet screaming at you, whatever your version is of poetry, this too is poetry. And poetry is taking your keynote stage right now. And there should be an incredible amount of pride that we poets have in that. And that's why I ended up creating the new speaking category called Poetic Voice.
And what I love about that, God, first of all, that is so good. That is so good. If I had a mic, I can't drop my mic because it's too expensive. So it's like what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that there's just this epic freaking. You call it hustle, you call it drive, call it whatever you want, but it's like you just said, I am taking a stand for myself, and I'm taking a stand for all those behind me, so I can trailblaze like any beautiful new. Someone that does something new and innovative just opens the door, blazes the trail for the next generations to come. And it's like, you just blew it open, man. It's like the first creators on YouTube doing their version of it. Oh, you can't make any money with that. You can't make it. Yeah. Tell that to guys making $30 million a year now. So it's like, the same thing with you. And I just love it. I love it. It's like, cause there's all these categories. Like I feel in my own little humble way, since I'm, a combo, a hybrid, I wish I was one thing. I can't be. But, comedy, spoken word poetry, singing and songwriting and storytelling and empowerment, all those things combined. I'm like, I don't see anything like that out here. It's either Hollywood with no soul or it's self-help putting my ass to sleep. God bless them because I love them because I've been there for 20 years. But there's something, my soul's like, this stuff bores me the way they're doing it. And this one doesn't have any soul. So let's create something new, and thus this has been that category. So I'm gonna have to hire you as my category.
It's making lightning, maybe.
I'm gonna have to hire you to be my category king and my brother and partner.
That's right.
Yeah, it's epic. Now,
one thing I will say about that also, that I talk about the models to follow, right?
Yeah,
and that's the challenge. It's like other art forms, they have their model. It's like I had one. I remember one kind of heartwarming story. Where there was a buddy of mine named Cal Fussman, who was.
I know Cal.
You know Cal?
Yeah, I actually spoke in front of him by accident. I spoke in front of him, and he sent me all these tweeted testimonials, and I was like, I didn't even know you were there, bro. It's like hell.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, so Cal is great, and he was just he had this amazing career doing all these mega interviews for GQ magazine for decades. And he felt like he wanted to do something else. He felt like he wanted to move into speaking, but he didn't know anyone that was doing speaking in the kind of way he wanted to do it and so forth. And he just felt like, man, I have nothing to follow. Right. And that's a scary place to be. And
totally.
And so he reached out to me. I can't remember who it was through, but he connected with me through someone else. And he said, hey, can I just take you out for dinner? I'd love to just pick your brain. And I'm busy, so I don't do that a whole lot, but every once in a while, the right request by the right person through the right connection warms my heart, and I do it. And so we went out, we grabbed some barbecue, and we talked about careers. And I never forget, he was like, you know what? It makes me think of Rita Moreno. And how, when she did West Side Story, like for Latina actresses, there just weren't any models to follow, like she just didn't have anyone that she could say, I want to be the next blank. And so it was this scary place for her as she was the first. And then all of a sudden now there's all of these other actresses that are like, yes, Rita Moreno was my blank. Rita Moreno was my so-and-so. She inspired this. I followed that career. I studied that, right? And he looked at me and he kind of paused and he was like, I'm realizing that you're my Rita Moreno. And when he said it, I was like, You ain't gonna make me cry, Cal. You're not gonna make me cry.
I love it.
Right? But it was just like nobody had ever put it like that to me before. Like this is scary not having a model, and suddenly when I realized you're doing it, it's like the skies parted, and it was suddenly like, yes, someone's proving that it can be done, and that's how I define inspiration. That's why I'm in the inspiration business, because I view inspiration as a peephole into possibility. Right? You got this wall in front of you, and a wall is telling you, end. Do not pass. Not a through street, right? This is it. Stop. And that's typically the voice of the world telling you stop. And then something comes along and disrupts it. It shakes the foundation, and it creates a crack or a little peephole in that wall. And now suddenly you're looking through that peephole and you're going, oh shit. Everything I felt in my gut, I can partially see on the other side of this wall.
Totally.
And now suddenly the wall becomes not a thing that stops you, but it's a thing to break through. It's a thing to kick down. It's a thing to tear down and climb over and get on the other side of it. And that peephole that you got, that little glimpse of inspiration, that was the thing that gave you the drive that compelled you from within to kick open that wall and to do something that hasn't been done before. And so I feel like those are the kinds of lightning makers that I try to keep myself surrounded by.
I love it.
That I try to celebrate, that I try to emulate myself, but also that I'm proud to be discovering that I've helped to spark. Right?
Yeah.
That I have people. I was in Mandalay Bay a couple weeks ago, finishing a gig, and headed to my car, and this dude came, Mr. Andrews. He was like, oh my God, I'm an inspirational speaker. And 6 years ago, this woman sat me down in front of your work and said, you need to study him. And I've studied you and I've learned your moves. And now I'm here speaking. I just did a little keynote at this event. And I was like, oh, I'm here for the same event. He was like, oh my God. Right. And it was just like, I can't believe I'm meeting you. But having those kinds of confirmations of the work that I'm doing, like that's really what this decade is about. I talked about the decade of survival. I talked about the decade of value, but this next decade for me is the decade of legacy. It's the decade of bringing everyone along, finding those poets, those speakers, teaching people, giving people the tools for this kind of a success. That's what the Lightning Machine is ultimately about, is sparking that and reminding people of what's possible for them.
I want me some of that, bro. I'm just telling you right now, because I gotta give you. I'm gonna give you a little reflection back. So, I was never interested in spoken word, and I think watching you and watching NQ, like you guys are like two of my favorite spoken word guys, because I don't know, you just have something different. You have something special, and you're like, don't tell NQ, but you're my favorite. It's like, because there's
I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch the NQ episode and see if you say the same thing.
Yeah, no, man, I ain't saying that. No, I don't want to say that. I mean, I love both of you equally. It's crazy, but honestly, I think around, I mean, he does the way he does his shit is amazing, and the way you do your stuff. You're two different people with just a common bond. So let's edit that out. You hear that, people? I don't have any people, so. So right around, I want to say maybe just a little bit before COVID or during COVID, somewhere in that neighborhood, I had all this shit to express, and I just started writing it, and I happened to start finding the rhymes because I'm a lyricist, right? Because I write songs, and I started finding this stuff, and I was, it was during where I had an attitude. There was some stuff going on in the world, and I noticed the difference between like my songs are more like Ed Sheeran. They're a little more soulful and John Mayer type, and the spoken word poetry is like Brandon AF is out. Like I'm just like bam, like, and I literally wrote like 50 poems or something, and like like during COVID summer, and and again, it's like I do it raw, and that's one thing I love to. I don't know, we have a ton of time left, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your process. But it's I found a different part of my artist. It was a different side of myself it's fulfilling something different. Just like improv comedy, it gives me that joy, and then the songwriting connects to my soul, and the poetry is just like this. I don't know, man. It's just like this whole other character comes alive, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, it's freeing, it's liberating. I think granted, there's poetic technique, there's structure, there's all kinds of rules to follow, and it's as structured as any other art form. But the spoken word component of it is is liberating for a lot of people, and that's what helps them to find their voice through spoken word. So I
Yeah,
love
it's
that
a
you're doing
different
that.
because it's like you're so, in a way you're limited with songwriting because you only get like a little verse unless you're doing rap, because then you get 16 bars.
Right.
So I do a lot of rap too. I love to rap too. Like I'm a white guy who
Yeah.
likes to rap, man. Like you wouldn't
Hey,
think,
own it.
right? I
Own
love
it.
it. I just love it. Now, the question is, and then here's a really good question for you too. There's the raw version where you're just putting yourself out there. You're spitting out your poems, you're spitting out your songs. They might not be
Yeah.
polished yet, but you're putting them out. And then there's someone like you who's on stage and like you've got the craft down. You've been doing it for a long time. It's in your soul, it's in your muscle memory. And so what do you tell people that are just starting out or kind of halfway in their process, as far as like getting to that place? Like where do you start? Do you have to like be all perfect at it, or should you just start going for it, putting it out there, and then find people like you to learn from and polish that craft as you go?
There's a famous phrase that says writers write,
Mm-hmm.
speakers speak, poets spit.
Poet
Like,
spit.
go
Just
out
spit on
there
my
and
screen, man.
that's right. And listen, deal with it. You know what I'm saying? If you want more, I'll just move closer, as I say.
No, I was saying I
um,
spit on my screen when you said that because I was like, anyway, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
thought I felt a little something right here.
yeah, right there.
Yeah, I always encourage people, don't overthink it. Like go to that open mic, go to that moth storytelling competition, go wherever there's a stage and a mic, and just begin to share your work. Spoken word environments are one of the safest environments, most
Hmm.
nurturing and safe environments. You get up there with your shaky paper and you're like, oh, this is my first time, and everybody's gonna give you love and snaps and applause and woo,
Nice.
and you mess up and you stumble, and you're in a safe space for you to be able to find your voice. And
Yeah.
so I just encourage people to go do it. And one of the I just did a CNN interview for an article about poetry and healing through poetry. And one of the things I was saying is initially, don't worry about whether the poem is good to you. Just let it be good for you.
Mm.
Like, let it be cathartic, let it be healing, let it help you to work out the kinks and to clear your throat and start finding your voice. And then the skills will come. You'll get good. Find people that you love, study them, pay attention to them. Like I did that even in spoken word. And my style is nothing like probably half the cats or anybody that you hear out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was looking around. Like I said, there were a few models for me to follow. Talam AC is a dope poet and has been one of those few models that I've known for a long-term spoken word career. And my boy Shihan, who ran the Poetry Lounge for years. LA has one of the biggest and longest running poetry open mics in the country, called the Poetry Lounge on Tuesday nights. And so I was just studying these cats that I was looking at, even in my girl Jahai at one point, like all these people that were like, okay, they're not exactly like what I'm talking about doing, but I'm cherry picking, right? Because this doesn't exist. So I've got to cherry pick my models and be like, I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I'm going to build something that's my own and build something that's new. But you got to, study, find those mentors, find those peers, surround yourself with people that are better than you, sharpen your
100.
sword, sharpen your
100%.
skills.
100%.
Yeah.
Man, I could talk to you for hours. I want to get a poem in. I want to make sure we at least get one poem in if you're up for doing that.
Okay.
But do you have just a short little window on your process, like where ideas come from and how you write them and develop them?
When I first started writing, it was just, I wrote what I felt,
Mm-hmm.
I'm angry today and I'm going to write an angry poem. I'm in love today and I'm going to write a I'm in love poem. Right. And then I made this art form my business. And if you understand, as an entrepreneur, anybody that has ever taken your hobby or taken your art or taken, something that you love doing and turned it into your commodity or your business,
Yeah.
you develop a different relationship with it. And so I'm always, whenever I'm talking, I do a lot of, counseling and mentoring and advising of entrepreneurs and artists trying to do just that, small business owners. And I'm like, look, I remember telling the poets that came after me, that won the National Poetry Slam after me, they were like, what do I do? And I was like, yo, have a conversation with yourself to ask yourself, do you want to make your art your business? Do you want to make it your commodity? because you're used to writing that poem that you want to write, but now all of a sudden you're going to have to write that phone bill poem. You know what I mean?
Bringing that
Like
phone
you're gonna
bill
have
poem.
to write that. You're gonna have to write that mortgage poem, homie. It's a different relationship. So for me, as I began to move into the business of inspiration, and I actually, and now it wasn't just a write an I'm in love poem, but it was I got to get a blood transfusion piece out from Mayo Clinic by Friday, you know? And it was like, Jesus, I got to find way. I don't have the luxury of just sitting and waiting for inspiration to come. So I have to figure out how to crowbar inspiration out. I have to figure out how to defibrillate inspiration in a sense, right? So I'm constantly seeking sources of inspiration. And one of the things that I tell people, I'm working on a book about the power of inspiration. And it's about how to be inspiring, but also how to be inspired. And to remember that to be inspiring, you need to be inspired. Right. Yeah. So pay attention to what inspires you. If you're sitting back and you're trying to go and move others with your writing or your art, first pay attention to what moves you. Right. If you're trying to be inspiring to others, pay attention to what inspires you, and then begin to hack that process. Right. So I'm very conscious of how does a light inspire me? And there are times in my writing that I need to be in a bright space. I need to be outside. I need sunshine, right? And wide open spaces. And there are other times in my writing when I need to be holed down, lights off, nothing but my laptop, and I'm furiously typing away. There are times when sound and the environment, right? This room is too quiet. I need to get out to my local coffee shop and be around people chattering and just be around life because I want to.
You're following the
energy.
Life. You're following the energy,
and it's the energy. It's the noises. It's the light. It's the colors. It's the conversations. There are times when I need to just have a conversation with someone, and I'll tell that I have certain homies that I call, or sometimes my wife, or maybe even one of my employees, and I'll be like, "Yo, I just need to pick your brain and just talk this piece out." And sometimes they might have something great to offer me. Like, what if you did that? And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. But other times, and more often than not, I just need to hear myself talk it out. And I need a real human being on the other side of it, because when I'm pacing around in my room or my office talking it out, it's not real. There's not that other side of an actual human connection that's stimulating me. So I'm very conscious of all of the energetic things that I keep as a part of my process and my ritual that help me to crowbar inspiration and access it as quickly as possible.
Beautiful.
There are a whole lot of things. One of the things I teach in my speaker training is pay attention to your rock star ritual, right? There are performers that go in and they have these rituals that they do before they give a performance. Speakers, typically their ritual is memorize the content, practice the slides, network with people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But dancers are warming up their body, and actors are paying attention to what their motivation is and the beats of each script, and singers are warming up their instrument, and people are getting to the zone. Performers approach the stage completely different than speakers. And that's why I began teaching speakers the secrets of performers to make them better executives or real estate agents or parents or whatever it is that they want to be, but to be mighty on every stage they touch. So those are all parts of the rituals as a performer that I use to harness my energy and heighten it.
That's awesome. That's beautiful, man. Yeah. Now I could say it's like I wish we could go on for another 2 or 3 hours. So I'm conscious of our time. Can you give us a short taste of something?
Yeah. Let's see here.
Show us what you got, bro.
I was gonna do this one, but this one I think is a little bit longer. Since we're talking about. We've talked about music. We've talked about NQ. We've talked about my roots in music. We've talked about the Lightning Machine. I feel like this captures a little bit of all of that.
Okay, you got this was the piece.
This was the piece that you mentioned at the very beginning. So now you've seen the video on the Berlin Wall, and now I'll share it with you. And your audience.
Perfect. I'm gonna give you the spotlight. I'll give you the stage. Sekou Andrews, yo, everybody, clap your hands.
This is a piece that is off of my last album, Sekou Andrews and the String Theory, a pairing of spoken word with a symphony orchestra that got us the first Grammy nomination for a contemporary poet for Best Spoken Word Album in 30 years. Really proud of this one. It's a celebration of the power of music in our lives. This is the music movement. Cuckoo. The truth to the science of music can be found in the laws of motion. Bodies at rest will remain at rest unless moved by an outside force. And we all got one. That DJ who propels our physiology in ridiculous ways, that personal theme song that transports us to a better place, that workout playlist that moves our lazy ass bodies at rest through 3 more miles and 2 more sets. And once I even read of a surgeon who was struck by lightning and filled with an uncontrollable appetite to create music. Oh, there is a spark in us that comes alive whenever music moves. And it ain't no point in trying to fight it. Oh, you will lose. It is physiologically impossible for human hips to not gyrate when James Brown comes on. Joints, muscles, bones undulate with a mind of their own, and it don't stop there. Immune systems heighten when hormones hear high notes, blood pressure lowered by the pendulum of bass lines, kicking fetuses wobble, baby, wobble in the womb to Mozart. As scientists study the Mozart effect on our smarts, even the human voice itself has the power to drive out cancerous cells. So perhaps then it will be both a scientist in a lab and a songstress in A flat that will sing our cells a cure. It's more than just music to our ears. It's music to our bodies. It's music to our brains. It's increased literacy and math skills attained. It's millions more graduation caps that will be gained when the sweet sound of success is a high school band playing with music programs, raising test scores by 20%, cutting music funding to save money for English and math. It's like removing a car's engine to save money on gas. We are literally removing the vehicle that is driving our collective success. I mean, what other force has the power to affect mass congregation like music? You tell me. Tell me. Okay. Well, maybe sporting events. I'll give you that one. And okay, so like sporting events and perhaps religious events too. I'll give you that. I hate to admit it, but poetry ain't filling up stadiums yet. Brandon AF yet. An interpretive dance, it ain't selling out the garden. And when's the last time you enjoyed the halftime short film at the Super Bowl? Exactly. Ain't nobody catching the Holy Ghost at the church art gallery and whispering, oh, hallelujah, look at the white space in that, praise God. No, quite the opposite. You walk into any get down home church and you will, before the sermon starts, and you will find a sweat lodge reverberating with drums, the slap of tambourines going strong, mouths wide, throats open, pulsating with songs that ready us to receive rapture. There are places where we find music as conduit to God, and it matters not the temple. You step outside that church and find cathedrals trembling beneath the might of organs, synagogues and mosques alike bellowing with hymns. Hell, even atheists are known to get down to a Prince track when they want to get open. It was only when Albert Einstein, tortured by futile calculations and feeling all was lost, put down his chalk and bathed his violin in Bach, that his capacity for creativity revealed his theory of relativity. So whether or not through blood we are all relatives, through music we are all relative. My country relative to your folk, my gospel relative to your soul, my pulse. Here's your speaker, biofeedback. When I press my 808 to your chest and you sync to my breath and our brainwaves dubstep to humanity's duet. See, Mozart might make us smarter, but when hip hop makes us connect beyond all reasonable doubt, we call that the Jay-Z effect. It is this power of music to move our individual units and re-release me, remixed by you, remastered as us. And we will know that our symphony is hotter than my single when God hears us turn on and shouts, oh, that's my song. We are each built to come alive when the beat starts. We are composed of electricity, waiting for the beat's spark. And we may not all be struck by lightning and inspired to create music, but we can all be struck by music and inspired to create lightning. So let it move us to our greatness, to our apex, to our success, and connect us to our best through each other like duets that perfect our highest octave and direct us to our quest, to the BPM of the drum set in our chest with the boom, boom,
boom, bap, boom, 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 bap of a bass clef that quickens our breath and slows the pace of death and erases stress and brings grace to the rest of this blessed life we have left, with a force that gives motion to our bodies at rest, because science is simply discovering what art already proved. Music is but a vehicle, and through it, we are moved.
Man, my heart is so fucking open right now. That's the power of poetry and your soul. Like just, whew, man, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Our audience is going to be all over that and just love you. Super quick. I know we're a little bit limited here on time. Just want to take a moment and say, brother, so great to connect with you in person. Well, almost in person. I love you. I love you as a soul, as a brother, as an artist, as a poet. You're my kind of people. You're just my kind of people, and I feel blessed. And I think that your heart and your art is changing this world. Every person, every performance, every time you're on that stage, every time you speak, every time you open your mouth, is a beautiful transformational cathartic healing for the world. And I appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing me with your audience.
You got it, man.
I appreciate you. Absolutely.
You got it.
Hopefully, I look forward to seeing you at the Lightning Machine.
I'll be there. I'll be there. Yeah.
And make sure you guys join my tribe too. You know. Like,
I was gonna say, where can people find you? Where's the best place people find you?
Like SeikouAndrews.com is my website. So that's the simplest way. Click Be Inspired. Join my tribe. I'll keep sending you inspirational content. Subscribe at my YouTube page. You can find the music movement, the video for this poem that he's talking about, as well as some of the other things that we've talked about. You'll find them on my YouTube page. Follow me at Seiku World on Instagram and Sekou Andrews on Twitter. And let's keep the inspirational party going. And come get your tickets to the Lightning Machine.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you,
ridiculous.
I'll be putting that out in the email. It's like everybody better get their ass there. All right, hang tight for a couple seconds. I'll be right in the green room with you. Appreciate you, bro.
Sounds good.
All right, man.
Peace.
The kind of guests we're getting on this show. There is nothing better. Just remember everything he said. Let it sink into your soul. Let that beautiful light from his eyes enter your eyes, his heart into your heart, and know that you matter, you are loved, and you deserve to get your voice out there. Now go be poetic, take that stage, and do your thing. All right, peace out. See you next time.